everyone. So this is the first ever episode of the Behind Closed Doors podcast, a brand new East focused podcast between myself, Craig Terrace Trails, and Ryan Moffat as well. This is something that we've been talking about for a while, and we waited until the new year before kicking this off, but it's exciting times. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm very good, thanks, mate. Just to use a footballer, classic footballer cliche, I'm buzzing to get started.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just all. We just need to make sure we start well. I think that's the kind of key with this. Yeah, need need to kind of throw in more cliches as we go through this. So, um, I guess like I'm assuming not everyone knows who we are. I'm sure some people will, but I think before we go into that, let's kind of talk about the name of this podcast, what it stands for, and what we intend to do with the podcast. And then we'll basically just kind of talk about ourselves for a little bit, and then we will move on to the football. So, Ryan, what was the kind of thinking behind the name? So, Behind Closed Doors podcast.
I suppose there's kind of two meanings to it. It's twofold. So behind closed doors, obviously, it's a well-known football term, and it was a well-known football term that was used a lot during the sort of COVID seasons. And I suppose for myself and yourself as well, something that we both have in common is during that time when there was a lot of games behind closed doors due to COVID, when we got to the stage where grounds were starting to reopen and allowing like small section of fans in, it was mostly lower league grounds at the time. That's when I think the both of us started going along to more of these lower league games and sort of developing that passion and going to these games. So um, that's the first sort of meaning behind the podcast. So it sort of symbolises how we got into really watching lower league football and going around all different grounds and seeing different teams. So if there was one good thing to come out of the COVID, then that's it. And then just the second meaning behind the name as well, behind closed doors. I guess just we want to try and promote sort of like a positive mental health. So obviously there's an old saying that you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors in people's lives. Like somebody could look like the happiest person in the world, but they could be having problems in their personal life. So you just don't know. So this podcast, we hope to bring an hour or however long the episode is going to be of an escape and just something that if anybody out there is having a bit of a shit time, they can switch the podcast on and just listen to us slaver a lot of nonsense for an hour and switch off and just get away from the realities of everyday life. And likewise, if we've got any guests on or that, again, it's just like I think you'll agree the intention is we want to make this like it's just a couple of guys or a few guys just sitting in the pub having a chat. So that's the second meaning, and I think that's quite an important meaning behind the name as well. So we've obviously been trying to think of a name for the podcast, and that's what we come up with. So I hope everybody likes it.
Yeah, that's bang on, Ryan. So I think just to kind of add to that, so I think we can all agree that football is great escapism. You watch a game for 90 minutes, sometimes longer. You kind of forget about work and I mean the stresses of life and stuff. I get that kind of with podcasts as well. There's a few podcasts I listen to, and you can kind of switch off. Even like football, snooker podcasts, lots of different types. So yeah, totally an opportunity for people just to immerse themselves in non-league football. And yeah, we will have guests, further down the line, and it will be like behind closed doors where there's not really any kind of rules around what we discuss. We're not going to sugarcoat things. We're just going to say it how it is. But at the same time, it's good to look at positives and negative situations, especially in football world. It's really easy to be negative about things. I think it's quite good to kind of see things from different perspectives. So, hopefully we can bring in different opinions from our guests, and we can really kind of explore that. So that's the kind of reasoning behind the name and what we're doing. I guess about us, and again, I'm not going to assume that everyone knows my voice or they've seen me before. So, um, my name's Craig. I'm originally was brought up in Edinburgh. Recently moved across to Fife, and I'm for most of my life was avid supporter of Hibs. Used to be Hibs home and away. I used to go to the occasional kind of lower league game, as a neutral, but nothing too kind of strenuous. To your point, Ryan, I think coming out of all of those, repeated lockdowns, it gave me a real appetite for kind of going places and exploring again. So I kind of got sucked into the bug of non-league football like yourself and a lot of other people. And once you're kind of in that, it's quite hard to. It's a great environment, meeting these clubs and go to see these teams and going places you've never been just for the purposes of watching a game of football and stuff like that. So and terrace trails is pretty much that. It's just traveling around watching football on different terraces. It's as simple as that. So yeah, I'm really excited to get back to talking about football, and we're going to try and cover as much as we can, across the east, and give as many teams as we can coverage, and really kind of showcase what these teams and these clubs do. So yeah, what about yourself, Ryan? What's your kind of background with football?
Again, very much a similar story to yourself, Craig. So, born in Edinburgh, Hearts fan all my life. Season ticket holder at Tynecastle, went home and away for many years, and then I just got to a kind of stage where I don't know, maybe just kind of fell out of love with football a wee bit. So I kind of took a step back from that. Didn't really go to games, and then moved to Bonnyrigg about 6 or 7 years ago. So, and obviously I was fully aware of Bonnyrigg. They were in the juniors at the time, east of Scotland at the time when I first moved up here, but I was still going to Hearts games. And then when I kind of parked that, um, actually, I was actually up at the high street getting a haircut one afternoon, and then I noticed on the sign outside the stadium, they were advertising who they were playing. It was their first game in the Lowland League after they'd just been promoted. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go along to that. It was only like £7. And I kind of got hooked from there. So I just started going along to their games every week, in the Lowland League at the time. Started really enjoying it. Kind of got the love for football back again. So, and that has kind of led me on to going to more and more non-league games. Just like it gave me a sort of appetite for going to more and more. So again, very much like yourself, just love to sort of go from ground to ground, watching different teams. You always get a good bit of entertainment. I would probably say that when I was a season ticket holder at Hearts and I was going to those games, I'll freely admit that if we had like international breaks or if games were postponed, the thought of going to a non-league game probably never entered my head. I would probably just go home and be in a mood because there was no Hearts game. And the thought of going to like these grounds would never enter my head. But to be honest, if there's anybody sort of in a similar boat, I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm sure you'll agree. It's brilliant, and like you say, you meet a various different range of people, and more often than not, you get a brilliant game as well for a reasonable price.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I met you at a non-league game.
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't
well,
know each other, never met before.
well, there you go. The proof's
Um,
proof's in the pudding there, eh? So like,
totally,
it's
yeah,
it's
and
a good
that's
it's a good way of meeting new people like who share like similar uh like hobbies and stuff. Like as you said, I think it was the Strollers East Kilbride game.
that's
We're
right,
all
yeah.
I think we had obviously started following each other on Twitter as it was at the time, and then we realised we were going to the same game, so we bumped into each other, and then obviously been to quite a lot of games since then, and realised that we both have a sort of the same sort of passion and a similar sort of backstory as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think on that point, I think a lot of people, it's quite hard going to your first kind of like non-league game on your own
Mm.
because you kind of feel a bit isolated. You don't know anyone and stuff like that. But like myself, like you, like lots of people I know, they've went to their first game on their own and then they've went back and then gradually over time they end up where they're like us, where every time we go to a game we bump into people
Aye,
just because you meet people that do the same things. They go, you know, a lot of games is like a neutral and stuff, and you bump into literally like, you know, five or six different people that just by chance that you know because they're doing exactly the same as you. So it is a really good environment. And I've not been to one football club that in the lower, like certainly the lower league or non-league, that hasn't made me welcome and hasn't made me want to go back. Do you know what I mean? They always kind of make the effort.
absolutely. Mm. Exactly the same.
So
Like majority of the grounds I go to, you like like you said, you'll bump into people, not just people that are there, like-minded people like yourself that are going to watch the game, but actually like committee members from
yeah,
the teams, even ranging from the managers of the teams to players of the teams. Like I'm sure you're the same. A lot of the grounds that you go to, you start to kind of get a wee bit of chat with these guys, and like I said, they make you feel welcome. So
totally. Yeah, definitely. Build up good relationship with these clubs and stuff. So that's kind of what we're doing and who we are, just so that everyone's kind of on the same page and everyone knows. Um, we're obviously here to talk about football, and we're not going to make you wait any longer for that. We're quite keen to talk about the football. So I guess the kind of easiest way to start this is just kind of talk about some of the games we went to. So I'll probably kick off and talk about Friday night, which was my first game of 2024. And I don't think I'll see more goals this season, to be honest. So we went to the Hearts B game versus Edinburgh University at Ainsley Park, home of Spartans. And I don't think I really need to go into too much depth around what happened. Ryan was at the same game as well. Um, you know, a 12-0 win for Hearts B against that, you know, an Edinburgh Uni side that are they're very kind of low on confidence, but they're still credit to them battling away and they're not losing the head. But it's not as much as it's a joy to watch a team play football really well, pass the ball freely, and you know they've kind of got the Hearts B are actually they've got a very good structure throughout the team, and they just kind of play nice football now. It's not nice to see a team, you know, on the back is what you know. I mean, it was like 7-0 at half time. You know, I'm surprised. I mean, a lot of teams probably wouldn't have came out for the second half, would
I
they?
know.
But
To be fair, when they came out in the second half, I thought they actually looked all right.
yeah,
They they I think they made one or two changes at half time, and then they actually looked like they carried a wee bit more in attacking threat, without really troubling the Hearts goal. It has to be said, but they did look a wee bit more in the game, and it took Hearts a wee while to get going again.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So I say, as a neutral, kind of great to see so many goals. Quite a few saves as well. You know, Edinburgh Uni saved a penalty as well, so
Uh,
it
to,
wasn't all.
to be
You
fair,
know,
the keeper was probably their best player.
yeah,
He did make a few decent saves, including that penalty save. So
yeah. We talked at the game about, you know, like Dave Maskew, like he's still a very good player, but I do feel for him because he doesn't get enough of the ball to do anything. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
He's you know hands down the best, the most experienced player in their side, but he's kind of left. He's not really much he can do. You know what I mean? He's I don't think they had the ball in the Hearts half enough and anywhere near him for him to actually do anything. So
it must be frustrating for him because you can see when, on the rare occasions that they do get the ball to him, you can see that he's obviously talented, and you feel that something's going to happen when he gets on the ball. But it's they spend that much time camped in their own half that trying to get their attacking players into the game is really difficult. it's funny because I watched them against Stirling Uni at Perth just before, in fact, New Year's Eve, I think it was. And albeit they got beaten quite heavily, I thought there was a really big improvement in them. They actually looked a bit more organised. Um, they did carry a decent attacking threat. They had two really good chances. They forced two really good saves from the Stirling Uni goalie in the first half. They actually did score in the second half as well. But I don't know if they were missing a few players against Hearts. I know they've got the big boy Jacob Shingle, centre half on loan from Linlithgow. Seen him quite a few times when he played for Whitehall. Really impressed. Obviously got his move to Linlithgow. He's now on loan at Edinburgh Uni. But he was missing from the Hearts game, so don't know if that sort of impacted them. But yeah, it's tough for them, and I really think that this relegation battle is going to go down to I'm positive it's Gretna, Edinburgh University on the last day.
Yeah,
So I think it's going to go down to that, to be honest.
yeah, I can't see either team pulling a string of results together to actually bridge a gap. I think, like you say, it's literally gonna be, maybe a point or 2 points between them all the way up until the end of the season, and then ultimately, unfortunately, one of those teams is gonna drop. But yeah, it's not good. Obviously, we want a more kind of competitive top half of the table, which we kind of have, after first place. But bottom end of the table is it's a bit of a landslide, isn't it? I mean, you've
Aye.
got teams that are clearly not going to be in a relegation battle above them, and they're picking up points. And then you've got, Gretna and Edinburgh Uni that are really that they're working hard, but they're just struggling to actually try and get something. Do you know what I mean? It's tough. I think there's something needs to be done to try and make it a bit more, I don't know, a bit more competitive at the bottom end of the table. I mean, it shouldn't be, it's the same as last season though. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
And obviously, you know, it was, Dalbeattie Star were struggling bottom end of the table, and they weren't a bad side overall. I mean, I saw them. I thought they're actually pretty good, and they did actually pick up results, but it was too late. But
I think
it's a tough league. Do you know
I
what I
think
mean?
sorry, mate, on you go.
Yeah, it's a tough league, fifth tier, but you've seen the teams that have dropped in from the leagues, like from tier four, that literally cannot get in the top half of that table.
Just shows how competitive it is. I think just on your point in terms of making this sort of lower half of the league more competitive, obviously there's been a lot of talk about relegation and promotion and restructuring and stuff, but without going into that, I mean, if it just sort of happens naturally, I think over the next 2 or 3 seasons, you're going to see that league. We say it every season, but the league's getting stronger every year. And give
Yeah,
it 2 or 3 years, and I think it's going to be even stronger. Obviously, it's looking like it's going to be between Gretna and Edinburgh Uni to go down this season. Without jumping too far ahead, and I don't want to be disrespectful to either of the teams, but you would imagine that the following season, whoever stays up is going to be favourite to go down. Um,
yeah,
so
potentially.
as they are at the moment, you never know if they might have an upturn in form, sign players, whatever. But if that does happen, then you're looking at the likes of Broxburn, Beef Juniors, your Pollocks, Darvilles, Musselburghs, teams like that in the west and the east that are they've got ambitions to come up. That's going to make that league even stronger. And then teams that are sort of down that lower half of the Lowland League at the moment, who are probably thinking, don't want to be down here, but we've sort of got that cushion of Gretna and Edinburgh Uni keeping us afloat at the moment.
Yeah,
That's not gonna last much longer. The way things are going at the moment. So yeah, I think give it another couple of seasons and that league's going to be ultra competitive at both ends of the table.
yeah, definitely. I think if you're looking at, well, I think there's a good chance that maybe someone like Clyde could fall through the cracks, and you don't know what happens. A lot of the league clubs, they don't they don't hold on to their squad when they drop down, and they have to obviously cut costs. They don't have the same wage bill. They can't attract the same players on loan, so they end up effectively kind of stuck, and I think you'd think, Clyde, if you were to drop them into the Lowland League right now with the squad they've got, they would probably be fine. But if you drop them into the Lowland League after they've been relegated, once they've lost all their best players
Mm.
and they struggle to attract new guys on smaller wages, then you end up with potentially another league club that's going to be struggling at the bottom end of the table. And yeah, again, it's that will gradually over time probably make the bottom end of the table more competitive because you've got all these league clubs that some of them may have aspirations to go back up in the next few years. And yeah, I think it's kind of a ticking time bomb for Edinburgh Uni and Gretna, especially Edinburgh Uni. I think they've kind of been riding their luck a bit, the last few years, and I think the more league clubs that drop in there, plus the new clubs that are going to come up, whether it be from the East of Scotland Premier or the West of Scotland Premier, they're going to find it harder and harder to pick up points to try and survive.
Absolutely, absolutely, yep.
So that was a Friday night game, which was say a pretty decent game. I actually went to another game which was on Saturday, and that was a local team, Rosyth, and they were playing Lochore Welfare. Now I've been trying to get to Rosyth games for a while, and things have got in the way, and I've not done it, and I've kind of felt bad because they are just up the road. I made sure that right, I'm definitely going to the Rosyth game. I've not seen them. I hadn't seen them under Stevie Crawford. I know he's doing a cracking job, and like I've got to be honest, I was really, really impressed like with what I saw. Um, Seen Rosyth quite a lot under the previous manager, Denham, and they were, to be fair, they were quite good when I saw them under him as well. But they had um, they had noticeable weaknesses at times in games under that Stevie Crawford side. I know it's Lochore Welfare playing, but Lochore are a good team. I've seen them quite a few times, and they're not an easy team to score against by any means. They got a goalkeeper.
Mhm.
Um, I thought Rosyth were phenomenal. I thought their defensively, they never looked like giving up anything. Midfield, like the tempo on the breakaways was just frightening. That's the best I've seen Rosyth, and could have had a few more goals. To be honest, like winning 2-0, it could have been more, but you've now got a situation where like Rosyth they're top six in the league, like seventh tier. Stevie Crawford's doing a remarkable job there. With he worked with the previous squad. I don't think he's brought in many, if any, new players in that team. Then he was obviously had a couple of young players on loan from Socky Juniors at the time. Um, but it's just remarkable what a job he's doing. I mean, it was a massive coup for Rosyth to get Stevie Crawford, because it wasn't long ago that he was at East Fife.
Yep.
And he's kind of went down from tier 4 down to tier 7, but he's certainly not doing it for a jolly. You can tell he's taking it seriously, and the results are there to show it. You can't just be sitting top 6 in that league unless you're playing well, and they're a side that beaten St Andrews and Whitburn comfortably this season as well, which is massive credit. So yeah, blown away, to be honest. And I'll definitely make an effort to go and see them more often before the end of the season. So yeah, that was a good one. Were you at any games on Saturday?
I was, mate. I went along to just a local game. Went along to New
Mhm.
Victoria Park. Wee Midlothian derby between Newton Grange Star and Whitehill Welfare. So I was originally planning on going to Arniston against Fairley Leaving, but that was postponed due to a frozen pitch. So and also had a pitch inspection just for the weather. The pitch inspection was a wee bit later, and thankfully that passed. So got to be a local game. So went along to that. I've watched it a few times this season. Been really, really impressed with them. But had a bit of a slow start to the season. I predicted that they would potentially win the league. If not, they'd definitely be there or thereabouts. But they had quite a slow start. But to be fair to them, they've had quite a lot of injury problems in the early months of the season. But now that they've got boys back for injury, they've got more of a settled squad. They've added one or two boys, boy Fraser Neve from Dunbar, who they originally got on loan and now have signed permanently. Been a great addition in the middle of the park for them. Um, they're on a real upturn in form, and that win at the weekend, 3-1 against Whitehill, took them to the top of the league. Albeit Dunipace are just behind them. I've got, I think, at least one game in hand, but really impressed with winning it and what Paul Mulligan's doing there at the moment. To be fair, they were far from their best on Saturday, and the manager admitted that as well. But I think, given it was the first game back after the Christmas and New Year period, there was bound to be a wee bit of rustiness. But professional job from them. They got the job done. Whitehill actually started the better of the sides, I'd say. I thought they started on the front foot. Looked like they were in the ascendancy. They had, I wouldn't say clear-cut chances, but they had a few half chances, but obviously failed to take them. And it was just the old classic: if you don't take your chances, it comes back and haunts you. And Nitton actually went in at half-time 2-0 up. So their players were going off the pitch at half-time, shouting, like they clearly weren't happy with their own performance, but albeit they went in 2-0 up at the break. Dean Ballantyne got the opener. It was a deflected effort, and the second goal was from Sean Conlon. So 2-0 lead for them. And again, to be fair, Whitehill came out in the second half, and again they started the second half quite well. Managed to get a goal back through Kevin Keane. And then, to be honest, there was a red card for Whitehill. Mark Malloy, their striker, was sent off. Apparently it was an elbow on Chris Robertson. I didn't see it. I kind of heard it, and then I'll need to see the highlights. But straight red card, and then that was kind of turning point, and kind of just went on to control the game from there. And then they got their third through centre half Ryan Ferguson for a Fraser Neve free kick. Great ball into the box, good header from Ferguson. So I big 3 points. As I said, they were kind of sort of mixed results at the start, sort of earlier stages of the season, and I'm sure they were losing quite a lot of late goals, which I think was frustrating their manager Paul Mulligan. And I think if you played that game maybe 2 or 3 months ago, they probably don't go on and win that 3-1. They probably end up drawing it 2-2, probably. But just they're on a real upturn in form. Although they didn't play great, they've ground it out, got 3 points, and taking them to the top of the league. So, if they can keep that up, I'm sure they'll be up there.
Yeah, so obviously recall last season, first half of the season, Newton Grange Star were in a really good shout to get promoted, and they were playing, fantastic football, picking up results. They're picking up results even when they weren't necessarily at their very best. Um, it's impressive that again after the new year, they found themselves in a really good position. Start January, top of the league again. Of course, there's the games in hand with the teams below them, but I think we've discussed it separately before, like the setup that they have at Nitton. It, it's got to be, it has to happen soon where they eventually, they go up, because I just honestly I think the setup is there to build on as well. Especially the Premier League club. I could easily see them being a really decent addition to that league. But the big question now is, can they avoid the kind of the slips through the cracks they've done last season, where things just kind of fell apart and they just kind of blew it a bit.
They obviously had a change in management team. So the last stages of last season, Chris King was in charge, and then he obviously left. Excuse me. They promoted Paul Mulligan, their 20s manager. So whether that was a contributing factor in terms of just the change of management and the uncertainty, I don't know. But certainly, Paul's brought in a few of his own players. He's promoted 2 or 3 boys from the under 20s. who are doing really, really well. So he seems to have a settled squad there that are playing well and enjoying their football. So yeah, I could see them as long as they can keep other players fit and avoid any injuries like they did at the sort of start of the season. I could see them just kind of motoring on and they'll say win the league. They've got a great chance of winning it, but I certainly think they'll be up there.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I think that league is going to probably go right to the wire. Even, once the other teams have caught up with their games in hand, I think for the rest of the season, I don't think there's going to be an outright winner there. Certainly not by a large number of points. I think it's going to be pretty tight. Those three places. I mean, there's teams that are just outside the top three. Like your Came ones, Whitburn. Even like Rosyth and stuff. That again, if they can get a good run of results, which they're more than capable of doing, things could change. You know what I mean? They're so. To be honest, I think we probably thought my early kind of prediction would probably be, probably, a Came one or Whitburn or St Andrews, but Dunny Pace are flying. They've been really consistent this season.
Yep.
So I think that league is wide open, especially the top three anyway.
It's a really good thing about these divisions, the fact that like 3 or 4 teams can go up and 3 or 4 teams
Yeah,
can go down. Just makes it that bit more competitive as well. Because if it was only one going up, say you had like one runaway leader, kind of it doesn't give the rest of the teams much to play for, if anything at all. So the
yeah,
fact that you've got like 3 promotion spots, and in that division, for example, you've probably got like 5 or 6 teams that are all in contention for those spots. And then likewise at the bottom half of the league, you've got 3 teams that could drop down a division. So you've got 3 teams fighting for their life. Whereas if you had one team that was just totally cut adrift, kind of
yeah.
takes the impetus off the other 2 teams. They're kind of like, "Ah, well, we're fine because that team's they're gone." Um, so just the fact that you've got multiple promotion and relegation places just makes it even more exciting for me.
Yeah, totally. It's I think it's a very underrated league. Especially in the east of Scotland. I know everyone talks about the Premier Division. I think the first division is just as exciting. I think there's a lot of big teams in that league that are
Yep.
itching to go up a tier. So yeah, we'll just need to see what happens, between now and the end of the season. Yeah, so we've talked about quite a lot of football so far, and we've got a lot more to talk about now. So obviously, we want to focus on the non-league teams, especially in the East. So what we're going to do is just kind of quickly talk through our thoughts on the leagues from tier 5 down to tier 9. Kind of early kind of look, I guess, look at how teams are doing, and I kind of look ahead and how we think it's going to play out between now and the end of the season. I quite like predicting things, so we'll see how we get on,
we
and we
can
can obviously, we can look back at this and at the end of the season and see if we were right. So we're going to start with the East of Scotland third division, so tier 9. So I think we've both been in agreement that we probably thought West Calder were going to run away with it this year. And certainly it looked like that could be the case for a while. And then we kind of realised that they're not invincible. They can get beat. And they've been beaten on 3 occasions in the 12 games they've played. So they're still sitting in a good position. They're third in the league. And they're only, they're 7 points off the top at the moment. It's certainly a tight top 5 in that league. Well, top 6 really. So it's a league, but it's by no means over, and they've got a very good chance there. But we have to give credit to Harthill Royal and how well they're doing this season. You
absolutely.
know what a turnaround it's been this season, and they've actually turned out to be one of the strongest teams in that league now. And yeah, they're doing an incredible job. And Bathgate as well. Have only lost one game this season, the 13 games they've played. And they've obviously got the highest goal difference in the league as well. So at the top end of the table, is it did you see it playing out like that, or are you any surprises for you?
Um, Heart Hill Royals the big surprise, obviously, given that they finished bottom of that division last season.
Yeah,
They only they only won 4 games last season, so they've well and truly surpassed that this time around, and they're sitting 2 points, 3 points off the top, albeit they've got a game in hand. They've got a game over Bathgate, sorry. Other than that, I kind of, like you said, that my favourites for the league would have been West Calder. I would have
yeah,
put them up there, but so I'm not surprised that they're up there. It's not surprised to see Bathgate up there either. I think last season they were there or thereabouts. So you had the top three that obviously went up, and then after below those top three were the likes of West Calder and Bathgate. So it's no surprise now that your Bonus Athletics and Armadales have been promoted that the Bathgates and West Calders are now up there challenging. But Harthill Royal certainly the surprise one there. Hoyk in fourth are quite interesting. So Hoyk Royal Albert were relegated into the third division last season. So they're sitting fourth, a couple of points off the promotion spot. So they'll be looking to bounce right back up. But when I was looking through the results, something that caught my eye was they've played 4 games away from home so far this season, and they've won all 4 of them, including a 2-1 win at Bathgate. Um, they've played 11 games in total, 4 of those away from home. So they've played the majority of their games at home so far, and they've got 1 game in hand on West Calder, who they're looking to leapfrog, and then they've got like 2 or 3 games in hand on the top 2. So obviously they've got a few games to make up, most of them away from home, and it seems like they're certainly a team that perform better on the road, having won 4 out of 4. So I think we could potentially see Hoyk um, firing up that table and maybe challenging for the league as well.
yeah, definitely. They are literally on the brink of that game in hand. They've got a game in hand over West Calder could be really interesting if they win that.
Yep.
Um, I guess at the bottom end of the table, I guess that the kind of focus is probably on the bottom two. So Livingston United are having a really tough season. They've yet to register a win this season so far. The 12 games they've played, and goal difference -30. They're finding it really, really tough. And also you've got the new boys, Linton Hotspur, a team that have been getting a lot of good recognition for the fantastic setup that they've built there, and they are a new club that will take time, but with time, I would expect them to be higher up the table. Do you know what I mean? It's their first season. It's a tough league to adjust to, um, but no, I think I guess the other one is Lochgelly Albert were really struggling at the start of the season,
Mm.
and they've been picking up points, and now they are, they're on 13 points. They've got 4 wins and a draw. They've probably surprised a lot of people because they were really struggling. They couldn't win near the start of the season, but they have proven that they're capable of picking up points. And I think they can hopefully build on that. They've got a fantastic setup as well. I've only visited them once, but as I say, they're a great football club, and I think if they can attract the right young players, then you never know. They could go up in that league as well.
Yeah,
So
they've really had an upturn in form. Just going back to Linton Hotspur, obviously you said they're a new team and finding their feet. I think, yeah, given a wee bit of time, I think we could see them. They've they've got the foundations there to be successful. Like you said, they've got a really good setup. They've got a good manager in Chris King, who I mentioned before. It was at Nitton. I noticed
yeah,
they've brought in a couple of boys just the last week or so there. They brought in Jimmy McQueen from Arniston, good experienced goalie. So yeah, they definitely want to watch. and
Yeah,
one that I need to
definitely.
one that I need to get along and visit as well.
Yeah, me too. I think everyone has been apart from us so far. Certainly everyone I've spoken to has visited. So yeah, we definitely need to do that. Um, moving on to the East of Scotland second division, so tier eight. So going back to who we think would win it, nothing's changed.
Who
You
could this
know,
be?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Bonus Athletic are unbelievable side. I've seen them a few times now, a couple of times this season, and they are just an unbelievable football team, and are more than capable of going up more than a tier. I think they could probably you could probably drop them into the Premier Division and they would probably be okay, to be honest.
Yep.
So they're obviously top of the league. They've only lost one game this season. They're doing really well, but if you take them out of it, right, if you think about the other two spots there, Armadale having a fantastic season again, very, very rarely get beat. Stirling Uni have been brilliant this season as well. And that's, you think obviously that's, effectively their kind of second team. And a lot of the guys that were, in the twos are now in the ones, for Stirling Uni because, a few players moved on from their Lowland side. So I think, Stirling Uni have got a cracking, set up in their kind of recruitment and their ability to bring in young players and very quickly gel them into the team is, testament to the coaching that they have there.
Yeah, 100%. You've already seen like there's boys that are in the Stirling Uni first team at the moment that have recently played in their second team. Um, Boy that I seen recently against Edinburgh Uni, I think Jack Doherty, I think his name was. Um, he played really well in that game. Had a wee look at him, and he's been predominantly playing in their twos. Cammy McKinley up front played for their twos as well. So got a don't know where still in uni. I don't know where they keep churning these players from, but they've got a serious conveyor belt of talent coming through that university.
Yeah, definitely. They just seem to be top end of the table. Um, and another, I guess, couple of call outs. So Thornton Hibs, fairly local team to me. Seen them quite a few times this season. They're having a fantastic season as well. They've only lost two games in the league, and they've literally got 5 games on hand. Um, on Stirling Uni, so they've played 5 games less. So I would be very surprised if they don't win most of those games, to be honest. They're just a really good side. Again, good recruitment. Got a manager there who is probably the longest serving manager in Scottish football at the moment. He knows the team inside out and he just has a vision of where that club needs to go. And I think they're doing really well. Edinburgh South are just below them. Again, they've got quite a few games in hand. They've only been beaten twice this season as well. So, um, as I say, we fully expect Bonus Athletic are going to win that league, but second and third spot are definitely up for grabs. And
Mm.
I think it's going to be, quite a tense run up to the end of the season to see who can leapfrog who in that league because it's so competitive, But that's the kind of top end of the table. I think, like if you look at like in the middle of the table, it's fairly even, to be honest. There's not a lot between the sides, but in the bottom three, or even you say bottom four, it's really tight. I mean, you've got Edinburgh United, Newborough, and Ormiston are all separated by 2 points in the bottom three. Those teams, again, it's good to see like teams that are capable of winning at the bottom of the end of the table. It's interesting. You don't want, a Vale Leafin scenario where they're just getting beat every week. I think it's going to be quite tight, right up until the end of the season there. Any surprises from your perspective for those teams?
Um, no real surprises, to be honest. I think probably need to give Armadale some credit. I mean, I'd be interested to know, obviously, last season in the third division, Bo'ness and Armadale were the top two. They're currently the top two in the second division after just being promoted. So I'd be quite interested to know how many how many times that's kind of happened. So if they go on to finish the top two, how many times have two teams went up a division and then finished first and second in that division above? So yeah, credit to them. Obviously, I think everybody expected Bo'ness to go up and probably win the league. Armadale, maybe not so much. Um, Maybe flew under the radar a bit with how well Bo'ness were doing, but yeah, probably slightly surprised at how well they're doing. The teams that you mentioned, Thornton and Hibs, I think last season they had a really strong season last season, but I think they might have just faltered a wee bit towards the end. So they'll obviously be looking at Lynn for that and just keep their run going to keep in touch with the top three. In terms of down the bottom end of the table, no, again, no real surprises to be honest. But as you said, it is tight, and the teams that are in that bottom three are picking up points, so they will fancy their chances of getting out of that relegation zone. But yeah, Bo'ness, Athletic by a mile, the standout in that league. And again, similar to, like I said, Stirling Uni keep churning out players. I don't know where Bo'ness keep churning out these goal scorers. Like they
Yeah,
lost, they obviously lost their top three goal scorers last season in Daramola, Grant Rose, and Dylan Patterson. But you look at the top goal scoring charts this season, they've got Ryan Robertson in there, Michael Weir, Callum McDonald. Seen that they've got a young boy, Finlay Shearer, on for Kelty, banging the goals in as well. I watched, I've watched them a few times um, over the last couple of seasons. I think I've seen them twice this season. And I mentioned when I saw them, they played Arniston in the Alex Jack Cup at New Byers. And I think I mentioned after that game, like, everybody associates Bo'ness with just like their firepower and the amount of goals that they score. But defensively in that game against Arniston, I thought they were incredible. Um, I think they're probably the defenders like didn't get too much recognition because of all the goals they score. All the talks about their strikers and the goals that they're scoring, but defensively, I thought they were outstanding. Their big number five, Blair Woodburn, he's probably the definition of don't judge a book by its cover. Like quite a big guy. People seen him for the first time probably think, like, what's this guy going to be like? Like as I say, he's quite a unit of guy, but he can get about that pitch and he's absolute solid centre half. So yeah, I think defensively and offensively they're an absolute force, and I totally agree. And they'll just keep going up. I wouldn't be surprised if they're knocking on the door of the Lowland League soon.
yeah, that brings in its own kind of dilemma with the ground sharing,
Aye.
where themselves and Bonus United are equal. We've got like equal ownership of that ground, I believe. So
Mhm.
if they're in the same league, I know they coordinate their training so that they don't bump into each other, and it would be yeah, it'd be pretty there'd be a bit of needle, I would imagine, if they meet in the Lowland League, but it will happen.
Like you seen
Um,
them recently. They played Broxburn in one of the cups recently,
yeah,
and they almost like they they got beat in the end, but they they ran Broxburn very close.
yeah, they're a top side, no doubt about it. Um, we move on to the East of Scotland First Division, and we've certainly covered the top six, earlier on tonight's show. Um, but I think one thing which again not a lot of people talk about is that kind of middle cluster of teams. I mean, you've got between seventh and 13th, there's only 5 points between those sides, and this is why um, they say, you can say that the table doesn't lie, but I think in that league, if you're near the mid table, if you drop down a few spots, it's not necessarily because you're having a bad season. It's just the teams around you are picking up points and they can all beat each other.
Mhm.
And I think we've kind of found that a lot of the results where Very competitive league at the top end, certainly around the middle, where a lot your kind of Preston Athletics, Kirkcaldy and Dysart, even like Heriot Watt Uni, really good side as well, and they're all good teams, but they find it hard to pull together a string of good results because it's so difficult. Again, it's such a tough league.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like anyone in that sort of cluster, like that, the whole outlook of that table come the end of the season for me will probably look completely different. Um, you've got obviously you've got the top three, but then you've got Camelin, Whitburn, maybe even chuck Rosyth into the mix there as well. The way they're going, they could be challenging for the top three. You've got Leith who are sitting in 14th in one of the relegation spots on 14 points. The teams
Yeah,
above them, Lockor, Whitehill, are only a point above them. Arniston's an interesting one. They're sitting in 11th, so obviously they were just promoted into this league. They're sitting in 11th now. Whilst it may look quite scary for them, looking at the points, they're only 2 points off relegation place. Come the end of the season, I can't see them being anywhere near the relegation places. They've
yeah,
they've only played 12 games compared to Leith have played 17, for example. I think Arniston have actually played the lowest amount of games in the league. Um, Obviously, I've watched them quite a lot this season, being one of the local teams to me. Fantastic side. Phil Alexander's got them playing some really, really good football. They've got some real talent in that squad. Um, I think, especially over sort of September, October time, they were absolutely flying. Some of the watching them, some of the football they were playing was outstanding. They were turning teams over. As you kind of hit the winter months, I think maybe getting games called off, it's kind of upset their rhythm a wee bit. And obviously, as I said, they've got a lot of games in hand, which I fully expect them to be successful and go and win a lot of those games. So potentially, like looking at Aniston, as I said, on 16 points, but if they win those games in hand, that could propel them right up the table as well. So, but yeah, it's looking a bit bleak for obviously Fairleigh Leafin down there on 0 points, 13
yeah.
defeats from 13. Oakley, albeit I've picked up one or two wee results. It's a consistency thing. I think just putting a run together that's actually going to get them out of that position. I can't see it happening, to be honest. Um, and then, yeah, you've got Leaf and Lockor, Whitehill kind of grouped together as well. So there's a wee bit of battle for that 14th, that sort of third relegation spot between a few teams. So that could be quite interesting come the sort of second half of the season. And as we touched on earlier as well, I think we've got a proper title race on in that league as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and as I say, some of the teams further down the table, if they can get a run of results, they could enter that race as well. Do you know what I mean? It could open up. So a top league there, the first division in the east of Scotland. Um, if we have a look at the Premier Division, right, and where we are right now. So we've mentioned them a few times on this podcast, and it's really hard not to mention Broxburn Athletic because they're a phenomenal side. Certainly this season they've really hit the ground running, and they should really be playing Celtic in the Scottish Cup, but that's a different matter. Thought they were a bit robbed there, but um, what a team! So Broxburn obviously run away with at the top end of the table. They're top of the league at the moment. They've only lost one game this season, which was the Dunbar United game, which we went to. Quite a few guys went to that one. Um, but I think again, if you kind of look below the table, Hutchie Vale are on fantastic form. They've been picking up results home and away, and they're doing really well. And then you've got your Genefield Swifts, Musselburgh Athletic are still in the mix, and then Socky. Now Socky's one where they actually started the season as bad as you possibly could imagine. You know what I mean? We I think I probably had them down as the favourites to win that league.
Same.
Um, and they certainly made it hard for themselves. But Socky being Socky, they obviously changed it around, and they're back to their kind of old ways where they're beating teams, and now they are very much, they're only 3 points off second, and yeah, very much in the mix of it. I think it was actually you that predicted that there would be a change in fortune for Socky, and I wrote it off because I said, I saw Socky in pre-season and they weren't great, and I kind of had a feeling that they were vulnerable at the back, and I wasn't surprised when they started so badly in the league. But then you said they will cruise up that table, and I shot you down for it, but you were absolutely right. They are back in the mix.
Aye, I'm not surprised to see them up there. Obviously, I was surprised with the start that they had. Didn't see that coming. Like yourself, they were my favourites to win the league. Obviously, had a really slow start to the season, and yeah, I think at the back they're maybe a wee bit vulnerable, but they've got goals in that team, especially with Ross Kavanagh. So he obviously had a wee bit of a quieter start to the season, but I thought it was only a matter of time before he came good and the others around him and they started scoring goals. Probably just giving themselves a wee bit too much to do in terms of winning the league this season. Um, so come the end of the season, see if they finish like if they finish quite close to Broxburn, they'll be kicking themselves because it'll be that slow
Yeah,
start that would have cost them. But it's looking like they've given themselves a wee bit too much to do. Then you've got obviously they were up there last season when Lithgow won it quite comfortably in the end. There were a lot of people sort of hot favourites to win it this season. Started slowly, they're finding their feet again. They're probably going to be right up there. But as I said, probably not going to win it. It's looking like Broxburn are going to do it. Will they be able to dust themselves down and go again next season? Like how many times can they keep sort of going, all right, we just missed out this year, let's go again next season.
yeah,
There's also the question of will they be able to maintain like, the boys like Ross Kavanagh. I know he's signed a 2-year contract, which I think is up this summer. Will they be able to keep a hold of him? So be interesting to see how they get on. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see them bounce back up and being up there. Like they're again, the funny side, because I obviously saw them a couple of seasons ago against Bonnyrigg in the Cup, and they absolutely turned us over. It's the first time I seen them, and I was so impressed with them. So I went to see them a few times after that, and to be honest, every time I've seen them after that, they've not been great. Um, whether that's just me unlucky picking games where they decide not to turn up, but, they're obviously doing something right at the moment because they're back on form and flying up the table. I think massive credit has to go to Hutchie Vale sitting in second.
yeah,
Absolutely flying. I think they finished 10th last season. And now they're sitting second just after the turn of the year. And it's Hutchie Vale v Broxburn this Friday night, which I'm absolutely buzzing for. So top of the table clash. I mean, if Hutchie Vale win that, then that could potentially blow the race wide open. Um, although Broxburn have played 16, but then you look at like Genefield have played 14. So if Hutchie were to win that, Genefield's got a couple of games in hand. Wouldn't they rule out them just yet? But
no,
it's gonna take something special for someone else to win it. It's just the way Broxburn are playing at the moment. Like you said, they've only lost one game. We were at that game they lost, deservedly beaten by Dunbar, who were fantastic on the day. But other than that, they've cruised it.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So as I say, all eyes are on Broxburn. They're still the team to beat, but certainly don't rule out the teams that are not far behind them. Bottom end of that table is there are three teams that have been struggling all season. Canoe finding it really tough this season. They've only registered one win, one draw, and they got 13 defeats. We've obviously got the worst goal difference of -46. Really, really struggling there. And then Loncarty, I thought they'd be at least mid-table. To be honest, they've only won 2 games. They've only got 6 points. In 14 games. Um, but I guess a big surprise for me is probably Glen Rothis. I know they came up into this division, and I mean they were really good last season, and I thought they would be, it's not going to say they're going to be dark horses to challenge for it, but again, like Lunkert, I would expect them to probably be a lot higher up the table, but it's just not worked out for them. I think the Premier Division is a league where if you come up, you have to try and survive your first season. Otherwise, I don't think you've got a chance of coming straight back up. Just because, as we've talked about, the first division is getting stronger and stronger. And if I don't think if those three teams go down, this season, I think they could struggle next season in the first division because there's a lot of sharks. Certainly around from the mid-table up to the top 3, 4 spots. I think there's a lot of teams that want to come into the Premier Division, so it's not a good place to be. You don't want to be potentially going up and then going straight back down into a harder league than what you left. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
aye, no, totally. That league's just so strong as well. Like
yeah,
above those bottom three, you're looking at like Crossgates, Inverkeithing, Hillybeef, Tynecastle, Pennycook, up to Dundonald in eighth. They're all kind of closely matched. There's not a great deal between those teams. And then the teams above them are the ones that are kind of hoping to put a bit of pressure on Broxburn, but there's so many good teams in that league. It's so difficult for, like you said, teams like Glenrothes coming up into that league. Your for your first season, you're probably I'm looking at Crossgates in 13th, and they're probably where the likes of Glenrothes and Lunkert and Canoe, where they would have hoped to have been. They
yeah,
probably wouldn't have thought first season coming up. We'll probably not go and challenge teams like a Pennycook or a Dundonald, a Haddington, etc. But if we can just keep our head above the parapet first season, build on that. Dunbar obviously seem to be the exception to that. They've come up and they're absolutely flying, sitting in sixth at the moment. We thought they might have been in a shout to win in the league at one point. They were doing that well. Kind of had a wee bit of a wobble, but in a very respectable sixth place.
yeah, definitely. So a cracking league. We've got one more league to cover, and we're going to join this up with something else. So we talk about the Lowland League, but we're also going to give our kind of honest thoughts around the B teams, right? Because we can't, beat around the bush with this, right? Hearts B sitting second in the league. I know a lot of people are against the B teams being part of the league, taking spots away from other teams, and I agree with that. But also, I think if you kind of look at it from other aspect, at the end of the day, right, they've been voted in, right? They've not just the it's not just their decision. There's enough votes to vote them into the Lowland League. They've been voted to remain in that league for another 2 seasons, and you can the actual like the quality of the young players that are coming through now at Hearts B under Liam Fox is startling. It's just as I say, last season they were they were absolutely nothing. Let's be honest. Stevie Naismith, in my opinion, not qualified to coach that B team, but he's found his feet in the first team. But I think a lot of people wouldn't have minded Hearts being in the league last season because they were a team that a lot of teams managed to put away,
Mm.
home and away, and they weren't really certainly not in that kind of top end of the table. But this season, you've got a situation where East Kilbride are the front runners, right? Everyone knows they've got a really really good chance of winning this league, and Hearts B they can win the league, but they can't go up, right? It would just mean that East Kilbride, if they finish second, they go up. But do you think people are maybe getting a bit more annoyed about the presence of the B teams when they are actually sitting in those kind of higher places in the table. Because for whatever reasons, Celtic B have completely fell apart this season, right? They're sitting ninth, and I don't think anyone's that bothered about playing them because you got a good chance of winning. But if you're playing Hearts, then you're going to struggle to beat them. Cowden Beef managed to beat them recently, but they've only lost 3 games in 22. So do you think people are getting annoyed at the fact they're taking points off teams that are actually trying to get out of that league? Or is it just the fact that they're stopping other teams that can't get in from getting into this league as well?
I think it's probably more of the latter, personally. I mean,
Mm,
yeah, Hearts are taking points off of teams, but then if you had, say, like a Broxbourne or a Beef Juniors in there, they'd probably take points off teams as well. I think
yeah,
it's more a case of, and this is my gripe with it now. Like, I I don't necessarily agree with the B teams, but I don't I don't hate it. I'm not against it as much as most. Like, obviously, my preference, like a lot of people, would be that they're not in that league and teams that probably deserve to be there in the tiers below are in the league. But
yeah,
that's not the case. At the end of the day, we can't change that as it is. Like, they're there. I always seem to think as well that when the voting comes around, you get a massive amount of people jumping on that, saying it's a disgrace, blah 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 blah. But then as the season kind of goes on, everyone kind of seems to forget about
yeah,
it,
yeah,
and then nothing's really said. So, like, obviously the last vote there was a lot of noise about it, but now it's gone quiet again.
yeah,
The next time that sort of comes around, there'll be a lot of noise on it again. Now, you mentioned previously in the episode the Hearts B team this season have been brilliant to watch. Whether they deserve to be in there, whether they should be in there or not, they're in there. And they're really good to watch. They're really competitive this season. And yeah, Celtic postponing games because their first team's on a winter break is a lot of nonsense. Playing James
yeah,
McCarthy and their B team's a lot of nonsense. I think I don't agree with that at all. But I think, to be fair, Hearts are doing it right. Rangers obviously pulled out, um, but Hearts are doing it right. I think you've seen that, like, Mackenzie Kirk's been absolutely flying this season. He's went and got a move from loan to Hamilton.
yeah,
So that's developing young talent there. Um, there's other boys in that team that have been, like Macaulay Tate has been made a couple of subs appearances for Hearts due to his performances in the B team.
yeah,
Obviously, I know you had like Alex Lowry and the boy Leon King done the same for Rangers, Celtic,
yeah,
not so much. But if these boys can continue to get into the Hearts squad or get loan moves like to the likes of Hamilton to progress a chance to get into the Hearts squad, then I think there's there's an argument to say that there's a benefit there. But yeah, overall, I'm not for the B teams, but I'm just of the opinion of they're there, so we just need to deal with it until something changes. And obviously, the clubs have the voting power, and if the clubs are voting them in, then what can you do?
yeah. I try not to get involved with the whole kind of good guy, bad guy chat,
Yeah,
right?
aye,
Right, at the end of the day, right, it's a vote, and clubs need to vote on what is best for them, and they have their own reasons, right? It might be that they need the extra revenue, or they want the bigger crowds when the B teams come to visit. It might be that they just want to try and help support the development of young players. There could be various different reasons, but I kind of think that I know a lot of clubs are they can be vocal about not voting for this, but no one is vocal about wanting them to stay in the league.
aye,
And I think that's because it's a kind of it's almost like a one-sided debate, but at the end of the day, there's enough votes to keep them in there. So they're not going anywhere for the next 2 years. I think, in a couple of seasons, maybe it will get to the point where the teams say, enough's enough. Do you know what I mean? They've been in the league, they've had the pleasure of having to play those teams, but it's time to let your teams from the the east and the west or even the south have a chance to try and get in this league, because ultimately, while it benefits them, it doesn't benefit those that can't get into the fifth tier, and they're probably clutching at straws to find a way to try and get into that, up that pyramid. So I think that just about covers it. I mean, obviously we talked about bottom end of the table in more detail earlier in the episode. This is our first episode. You can call it a pilot if you want. We will be, releasing regular content on YouTube and Spotify every Tuesday, and we will be visible on the socials. So keep an eye out. It's been a pleasure, and as I say, this is just the start. We will have guests. So thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.